Community buildings are places where people go to meet others, access services, learn skills, and have fun. For many across the city, they are a place of safety and comfort, and it is important that we take action to improve and upgrade them to safeguard them in the face of rising energy costs and the effects of climate change over the coming years. We call buildings that are able to adapt and weather these changes resilient. To be clear, when we talk about resilient buildings, we are talking about buildings that are comfortable spaces in both hot and cold weather. We're talking about buildings that are climate resilient, considering temperature, flooding, and even the impact of weather on the electrical systems. We're talking about buildings that have a minimized environmental impact. Carbon emissions are the key driver of global climate change, and buildings nationally account for 23% of all UK carbon emissions. This mainly comes from how we heat and power our buildings, and in particular, the burning of fossil fuels such as gas for heating. We are also talking about buildings that are cost-effective to run, and with rising energy costs, coupled with the effects of the COVID pandemic, lots of buildings that were already struggling to make ends meet before are in an even more challenging position now. So what can we do that will help improve the comfort, climate resilience, environmental impact, and cost-effectiveness of a building? Before we make any changes, it is important to consider the energy hierarchy. This is a prioritization approach that can be used to help assist progress towards a more sustainable energy system in a building, and in its simplest form contains 3 stages. Stage 1. Before any money is spent, there is a fair amount that can be done for free, and it is important that before any disruptive insulation works are planned or expensive technology is purchased, buildings do what they can to reduce their energy usage. Starting with this will help ensure that any funded works are cost-effective and any new systems are accurately matched to the true needs of the building. Once this has been explored and energy usage has been reduced, it is important to make sure that as little energy is lost from the building as possible. In this context, when we talk about losing energy, we are generally referring to heat loss, and there are a number of ways that this can be reduced, which we will go into in more detail shortly. Selection of these measures will be entirely dependent on the construction of the building, and it is strongly advised that buildings seek guidance on this, both in the decision-making and installation of such measures. Finally, once steps 1 and 2 have been taken, on-site generation technology can be explored and installed. It is important that these measures are only taken once it has been decided that they are appropriate and cost-effective, as they will be most efficient if the conditions are optimal. Air source heat pumps, for example. So whilst in reality it is never as simple as just following these steps one after another, if buildings try and do their best to consider measures in this order, then they are setting themselves up to maximise the impact of the changes they make. Money and time will be wasted if proper thought isn't given to the most appropriate order in which to take action. An easy way of remembering this is that firstly, we look to make the energy usage lean. Then we ensure it is clean, i.e. no losses, before going green and installing on-site generation measures. Once steps have been taken to reduce energy usage, buildings can then look to reduce their heat loss and improve energy efficiency through installing insulation. Unfortunately, there's no standard community building. However, we know that for an uninsulated domestic property, most of the energy is lost through the walls, with 35% of energy loss here. 25% is lost through the roof, a further 25% through drafts, and the remaining 15% through the floor. There are a number of ways that these losses can be reduced, and the selection of measures will depend on a number of factors, including the materials that the building is made of, as well as how long each measure will take to pay back its upfront cost through the savings it creates. For the largest area of loss, the walls, depending on the construction, you can install either cavity wall insulation or internal or external cladding. For the roof, you can opt for either loft or solid roof insulation, depending on if there is a loft space. To minimize heat loss from windows and drafts, you can install double glazing or take action to seal up gaps around doors, windows, and pipes. There are also a range of approaches to insulate your floor. When talking about reducing energy losses, it is also important to consider that this can also be done through choosing more efficient lighting and a more efficient heating system. So once the insulation has been considered and where possible upgraded, buildings can then look to generate their own energy on site. There are a few measures which are effective at building level. So going clockwise from the top left, we have solar panels or solar photovoltaic. These capture energy from the sun and convert it into electricity. This can reduce building costs and reliance on buying electricity from the grid, and surplus energy can even be sold back or stored in a battery. Number 2, solar thermal. These are similar to solar panels, but instead of converting the sun's energy to electricity, they use it to heat hot water. This is useful for buildings with high hot water usage, as they subsidize the cost of water heating, which reduces overall bills. 3 and 4 are heating measures. So starting with 3, we have an air source heat pump. This runs on electricity and takes the heat from the air and turns it into heat for the building. These are very efficient in well-insulated buildings, but are less efficient if the building has a poor energy efficiency rating. For number 4, we have ground source heat pump. Instead of taking heat from the air, these take heat from the ground and are only practical if the building has access to and ownership of a fairly large adjoining or outdoor space. So to help you make your decisions, there are a couple of questions that may be useful to consider. Question 1. Is their approach efficient, cost-effective, and in line with the energy hierarchy? For example, if they are asking for money to fund a heat pump, which is on-site generation, have they provided evidence that the appropriate insulation measures are in place and that actions lower down the hierarchy have been completed first? Question 2. What research and exploration have they done to select this as their project? How have they come to this decision? What evidence have they provided that demonstrates they are choosing appropriate measures? For example, have they had a building survey or feasibility study done? Or have they carried out their own energy audit or tracked their usage?